All right, welcome back. Glad to have you back with us today. The EntreArchitect Community Annual Meeting is coming up November 1st through 3rd in Austin, Texas. Every time I pop on here like that, you hear me say that. So today I wanted to continue to give you a chance to hear from the fantastic lineup of speakers that are really going to make this a must-attend conference. If you haven't heard about it before, it's the EntreArchitect Community Annual Meeting. It's the business conference for entrepreneur architects. In fact, it's the first ever live conference dedicated just to small firm entrepreneur architects. I started this live stream a little over a month ago, maybe close to 2 months ago now, to introduce you to all of our speakers. And now I'm bringing them all back around to give you a little teaser about their talks. So good afternoon or good morning, I guess, depending on where you are. My name is Jeff Eccles. I'm the Vice President of Community Development at EntreArchitect, the largest worldwide community of entrepreneur architects. And I'm also the host of Context and Clarity Live, where I get the opportunity to talk to a lot of these people that are going to be speakers. And I really value that. I love getting to know all of these speakers, including today's, by the way. So today, as I said, I'm joined by one of my Gable Media comrades and someone whose work I always recommend. So let me introduce to you Evelyn Lee. Evelyn is a co-host of the podcast Practice Disrupted, and along with her co-host, Janine Chastain, they'll present a talk about industry trends and the evolution of design practices. So let's meet Evelyn. Hi, Evelyn. Thanks for
Hi,
joining me
Jeff. Yeah,
today. How are you?
thanks for having me on. Hi, Jessica, too. And I do bet Taco Tuesday is legit and awesome.
It definitely is. If we leave now, we can probably be there before all the taco trucks close down. So
Perhaps, yeah.
yeah,
Or you
let's
could
go
just
do
join
Taco
us in
Tuesday.
Austin, right? In,
Exactly.
in November.
Exactly.
Hi,
Yeah, we'll do
Chris.
tacos. It's great to have you here. It's great to have Jessica. Jessica's in LA. Thanks for joining us, Jessica, and Chris from Massachusetts. Glad to have both of you. So Jessica said she's excited to hear more. She started listening to your podcast recently, so that's pretty
I
cool.
know. Yeah, thank you. It's we never know who we're reaching out. With podcasts, it's really hard to determine who's actually listening on the other end, as you know. So we only know when you let us know. So thank you for that, Jessica.
Yeah, that is awesome. I do know that there are a lot of Ball State students that at least once listen to
At least
your
once,
podcast.
because it was required listening from their
It is.
professional
It
practice.
is required listening. Yeah, so I do as an assignment with the MArch class. They have to go through your catalog, which is about 90 episodes now, I believe. They have to go through your catalog and just pick out an episode that sounds interesting, listen to it, and then they journal every week. And so I want to know, why did you pick it? What'd you get out of it? How do you think differently about the profession from here? And a lot of them continue to listen after that point. So it's pretty cool.
Well, thank you for sending listeners our way. I really appreciate it. I mean, Gable appreciates it, of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Well, for anybody that is meeting you for the first time, they've not listened to Practice Disrupted. They've not met you in any way before. Can you just tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do and why you do it, maybe?
Yeah, so I'm a licensed architect. I've been a volunteer in the AIA for many years. In 21, I earned my fellowship. It was either 2021. What year is it?
I don't know.
But I have an untraditional role. So I work at Slack Technologies, where I am the head of workplace strategy and innovation right now. So for those of you who know Slack, we are this wonderful communications platform and so much more. But pre-pandemic, we were only 5% remote as a company, and everyone had an assigned desk. So similar to every other organization out there figuring out return to the office and what that looks like. I'm kind of heading up that effort, and we have a wonderful research body here called thefutureform.com which is where we get actually a lot of information, honestly, that drives some of the conversations on Practice Disrupted. But they've been doing they're looking at what it takes to attract and retain the best knowledge workers out there, and best practices around how to make the future work. And then my job is to take the body of research that the Future Forum does and actually help implement it in Slack, the company. So while I do have a focus on architecture and offices, I also focus on operations, process, and policies. And that kind of leads to, this is a very long-winded answer, I'm sorry, Jeff. That
That's a
kind of
great
leads
answer.
to practice of architecture, which I launched while I was in business school. It's a consultancy for architects, mostly small and medium-sized firms, to help them on the business operations side of practice, and ultimately help them expand their services to collectively raise the value of architects. And then during the pandemic, Mark he launched Gable Media, and I had been talking to him for a while about starting my own podcast. I said it would be odd for me to be on the air, I don't know, myself. So I invited my good friend Je'Nen. She's also a licensed architect, has her business degree similar to me, and she is on the West Coast visiting clients right now. She has her own consultancy, Apostrophe Consulting, focused on, a lot on leadership development and creating amazing teams, especially in this new way of working. So, yeah.
Well, I love the fact that all of those things blend together, all of those things merge together, right? There's Slack and there's technology and of course the consultancies and everything, but also all of that informing some of these conversations that you're having on Practice Disrupted, which is a fantastic segue to the EntreArchitect Community Annual Meeting, the conference is coming up in November, where you and Je'Nen together, and as Evelyn said, we're trying to get Je'Nen on today, but she's busy, so it's just the two of us, which is fine too. But the two of you will be on stage at the conference talking about trends and the future of design and or design practices. So, what do you want to share about what you're going to talk about in Austin?
Yeah, I think there's been an ongoing conversation around culture lately within the profession, within studio, and how do you create a culture? And in the whole return to office, I can go very deep end on this, so pull me back. But in the whole return to office conversation, I think people are like, oh, we lost culture when we went remote, and we need to bring people back to the office for culture. That's a very specific definition of culture. So I think,
Right.
We're going to help kind of define what is culture and have an honest conversation or honest dialogue about what needs to change. If we look through all of our episodes at Practice Disrupted, we've talked to past presidents of AIAS. Je'Nen happens to be one of them, but they've been focused on studio culture for 10, 15 years. And, what does it really mean to change studio culture in school? And then I think there's an honest dialogue that we want to have around, oh, shoot, and I should have looked it up before I got online. There's that recent firm that unionized, right, in New York.
Yep.
And then, there's also Shop had an attempt to unionize earlier this year that just didn't go through. But I think it's a call for change in our offices, in the culture of work. So we'll do one section on culture, and I think that really talks about next generation leaders. So Jeff, I know you teach professional practice, but I feel like professional development in the overall profession of architecture and the industry is really lacking, especially for what we at Slack call the middle managers or the line managers, and what Je'Nen would position as like the next generation leaders. So how do you up-level those individuals, especially as they learn to manage hybrid teams? And then that kind of goes into what does it really take to build great teams and communication strategies. And then finally, we're going to wrap it up with, additional workplace trends that's coming out of the Future Forum. How do you truly integrate flexibility into your workflows asynchronously, and can can small and medium-sized firms do that? And then maybe even share some case studies. You and I have a great friend in Leah Bear of For Our Architects, who ran a virtual practice even before the pandemic started.
Yep.
And, virtual practice is definitely not for everyone, but that doesn't mean that we can't learn lessons from those people that are doing it.
Yeah. Well, and you bring up future leaders, and I think that's really important. That's another passion of mine. And, a shout out to all of the Christopher Kelly Leadership Development Program sections across the country, which we have one that I helped start here in Indiana. And as you were saying that, I was thinking about them, because that's what that program is, right? It's the future leaders, it's leadership development program. And when March of 2020, when COVID happened and started to shut things down, the conversation, we were fairly far through one of the cohorts at that point. And so the conversation becomes, how do we continue forward, and what does the next cohort look like? And, we had to make some tough decisions, but part of it is, no, we're not going to delay this. We have to figure this out, just like we have to figure out how to work. These future leaders are going to have to figure out how to conduct their sessions, how to bring in their speakers, how to manage all of these. And I think it was, it's situational learning, I suppose, but it's that type of thing that we need to, I think, as a profession, we need to get really good at, and bring some agility into the practice, because we're just going to continue to have to roll with the punches, I believe.
Yeah, and I think hi Scott, and hi John Jones for joining too. I think, and we talk about that, right? And we talk about, it's interesting. I feel like architects want to put themselves in a little box and say we're extra special and we do things differently, and we're struggling with this. Technology is struggling with this. Our managers used to have weekly in-person meetings with people, and now nobody wants to come into the office. So now they're coming in for 2 to 3 day, on-sites. And we need to teach them how to design meaningful meetings where people don't leave coming in the office those 2 to 3 days thinking, oh, we could have done that on Zoom, right?
Yeah.
So there's even those skills that we're trying to kind of help up-level our own middle managers. So Chris had a question.
I'm going to put it up on the screen here. He says, I would imagine that most in attendance in Austin are sole practitioners or have part-time drafting help. Will the talk that you and Je'Nen are going to do, will it also touch on how we can establish culture, mentorships, et cetera, where there isn't staff, or maybe not staff,
or full-time employers?
Yep, exactly. Maybe we, with who we collaborate with, consultants, et cetera.
Yeah, I'm actually doing we just launched a new resource on practice of architecture. You mentioned agility. Agility is something that is said in the tech world, not necessarily used in the profession, but we just started the Agile Practice resource, and I've done a deep dive on on creating a work with me manual. So this is a manual that anyone can use, and depending on how transparent or open you want to be, you can have. It's a manual. It's something that you can give to anyone you're going to work with, to open up that conversation about how we can work better. It's clearing the, when you are getting to know somebody and you don't know, at what hours
Mm-hmm.
should I call? Should I text? Should I email? Should we Slack? Should we Teams? Should we, when are you always going to be around? How do I know to get a hold of you? How often do you want me to check in? Do you want me to check in all the time? Do you want me to check in when I got stuck? Do you want an update at the end of the day? Do you only want an update weekly? So these work with me manuals essentially is a list of questions that any manager or individual leader, sole practitioner can answer. And then you can decide, like, these are the questions that I want to share with the consultants that I'm working with, just so it takes all the wondering out of it helps establish the relationship quicker because you don't have to ask all those questions that you otherwise would ask about communication style and work style. And some people even share it with clients too, to kind of establish boundaries around I'm not taking calls after 5, which I know is harder for sole practitioners doing residential, where their clients are all at work. But I'm not taking any calls or answering any messages on the weekend. So those are similar. It's something you can also share out with clients.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. It resonates because our topic today, this morning in pro practice class was B101, the AI contract documents, owner architect agreement. We'll just attach that as an exhibit to B101. This is how we're going to work together.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's literally just, I think that it'll end up being a template of like 20 questions. And of course, anyone can expand upon that. But it's just like things I wish I knew about my colleagues that it took me like a month of working with them to figure out before I
Yeah.
actually knew. Right.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned culture before, and the evolution and change and anytime that comes up and how we define, usually what we think of as a pretty traditional culture. And I tell this story all the time is I worked for years in a fully remote culture. And to this day, I still consider some of those colleagues my friends. I still have good relationships and good rapport and good contact with many of them, and several of them I have never in my life met them.
Met in
We've
person.
never met in person. And then I've had a situation more recently than that where it was sort of a hybrid team, a few people that were remote and most people in the office some of the time, that type of thing. And that was a culture. And I remember this, to me, it really came to a head when we had a holiday party. And that was one of the most uncomfortable, ridiculous experiences of mine and other people's lives because it was a horrible culture and nobody knew each other and nobody, it's like, hey, wait a minute, we're here all the time. We don't know each other, all of those things. So, I think you're exactly right when you're talking about, we often define culture pretty tightly and have biases based on how we define that culture. And my experience is it's not about the location, right? It's not about the proximity necessarily. There's got to be something more to it. So I'm excited to hear more about that.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I mean, I would think, part of it stems, I think, from shared values, but
Yeah.
and more often than not, and like a level of transparency and communication that allows you to communicate either in the office with one another, right, or virtually, be it Zoom or Slack. What's interesting to me is when pre-pandemic, especially when anyone had like a culture committee, it was really the event committee. It's like the committee that plans birthdays and
Yeah.
happy hours, and I feel like so many not only firm leaders but business leaders default to like that's what embodies our culture. Um, I would say that what embodies our culture is how we communicate with one another, how we interact with one another, and that can happen a variety of different ways,
Sure. Yeah.
in person and remote. So.
Yeah. I think that's a really great point. I completely agree with that point of view. I know that we're running late, which is my fault. I got stuck. This is the irony. I've been
I think we
stuck
were
in my
both
basement.
actually stuck in traffic at one point this morning, so that's okay.
Yeah. Well, it's, I've joked for 2.5 years because I've been in my basement for 2.5 years. Oh, I was late because I was stuck in traffic, between here and upstairs. And now I finally get out and I'm stuck in
You
traffic
are
today.
stuck
So
in traffic.
it's a
Traffic is
literal.
definitely back in the Bay Area, so yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. This is central Indiana. We're not supposed to have traffic. Um, so maybe the way to wrap this up is to think ahead. We're less than a month out now from the conference. For those that are planning to be in Austin, November 1st through 3rd, Austin, Texas, or maybe they're on the fence, maybe they're thinking about coming to Austin. looking ahead to the talk that you and Je'Nen are going to present, what's one way that someone can prepare? I think we need to show up and be intentional about um, attending your talk. So what's one way I can prepare myself for making the most out of what the two of you are going to talk about?
Well, so I think the low hanging fruit is to tune in, is to do the same assignment that you give your professional practice students, which is, to tune in to Practice Disrupted. We have a few episodes. We recently launched a few episodes on. We launched one with Latinas for Hispanic Heritage Month. We launched a conversation yesterday with one of the leaders, or last week with one of the leaders of EntreArchitect. Or actually, this week we have an episode coming out with two individuals from the Future Forum. So if you are looking to actually invest some money in the conversation, I would go out and get the Future Forum book. It's a New York Times bestseller. It's called How the Future Works. It has a little bit in there about these personal work with me manuals, as well as some other ways to kind of not going nearly as deep as I went down a rabbit hole with it, but it has some good high level ways to go about creating what we're calling a digital first culture, because digital first means doesn't always mean never in person. We value that in person time. But how do you create that with your clients as well for those smaller practitioners? So How the Future Works by Future Forum. Google that and listen to Practice Disrupted. Yeah.
So if you missed this in the beginning, then what Evelyn is referring to is now your assignment is to pick one of the episodes of Practice Disrupted, listen to it or more. Just find one that looks interesting. Like I said, I think there's about 90 episodes out there now. Pick one out that sounds interesting, listen to it, and then write me. write Evelyn and Je'Nen and say, hey, this is what I took away from this, and this is how my view of the future of my practice has changed. And write that down on a note card and hand it to them in Austin, Texas, when we get there at the beginning of November. That's your assignment. So how's that?
Yeah, perfect. Or reach out to us. Practice of Architecture is on all of the social media channels, so you can reach out to us directly there. I look forward to seeing everyone in Austin. And I mean, Jeff, you and I met virtually, like in person, for the first time at conference in Chicago, I think. So
yeah. I think that is
very briefly, because you know how conferences of that scale go.
It's a flash. Yep. Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, again, I know, apologies because we're running late, but there you have it. Evelyn Lee, architect, technologist, co-host of the podcast Practice Disrupted, at the EntreArchitect Community Annual Meeting in Austin, Texas, November 1st through 3rd. She and Je'Nen Chastain will deliver a talk titled Transforming the Practice of Architecture. This is one that I'm really looking forward to. And I should say also, I try to say this in every one of these episodes, but I really love the way that this conference is set up. It's organized, it's envisioned, because you don't have to choose, hey, do I want to go listen to Evelyn and Je'Nen, or do I want to go listen to Bob talk about something else? Nope. You get to listen and immerse yourself in what Evelyn and Je'Nen are talking about, learn from them, interact with them. And then once that's over, we go do something else. It's a one-track conference where we're all immersing ourselves in every aspect of building better businesses and envisioning better businesses. So if you're an architect that wants to learn to build a business that allows you to practice in your own way, or maybe you're the employee of a firm and you'd like to take all this information back, or maybe you even aspire to start your own practice and do it your own way, go over to smallfirmconference.com, which I will, here, I'll put that up on the screen there. Go over to smallfirmconference.com, where you can find out all about the speakers, you can find out all about the venue, and you can register from there. I hope that you will join us in November 1st through 3rd in Austin, Texas. Again, this is the first ever live conference that's dedicated just to you, just to the small firm entrepreneur architects. So check it out. I promise you won't be disappointed. Come meet Evelyn, come meet me, come meet Je'Nen, all the fantastic speakers and the rest of the EntreArchitect community there in Austin. And I'm pretty sure we're going to have some great food. I know we're going to have some great time. Tacos are guaranteed. Just throwing that
Tacos
out
on Tuesday, the first day of the conference, right?
there. Absolutely. We're going to do Taco Tuesday in a big way. All right, Evelyn, thanks for hanging in there with me and waiting on me. Thanks for spending some time with us, and
Absolutely. See you
keep
all
up
in
the
Austin.
great work. Yep.
Yeah.
Looking forward to seeing you in Austin.
Okay.
All right,
Thanks,
everybody
Jeff.
out there. Thank you.
Thanks,
Whether you're
everyone.
watching live or watching in the future, we appreciate you. Hope that you'll go over to smallfirmconference.com, register for this event. We'll see you in Austin, Texas. And until then, please be well, stay safe, take a little bit of time to breathe, relax, find some way to rejuvenate. It's a long game. Got to pace yourself. We'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody.